How does that sound to you? Whenever my mother heard that gospel, she bristled. My mother clearly was more a disciple of Martha than she was of Mary. And she really did not appreciate how Jesus spoke to Mary, seemingly putting down the role Martha was playing, which was so often the role that my mother was in. The irony is that we celebrated my mother's funeral on the feast of St. Martha. But you can bet we did not read this gospel. We have to be careful not to take Jesus' words about Mary's special place as sort of an opportunity for us to dismiss the importance of welcoming and hospitality, being of service to others. It's not a license to just sit, pray, read the Bible, come to adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, all of which are good to do. But it's not a license to just do that. Clearly, we are called to do more than just be contemplatives. In fact, this gospel follows last Sunday's gospel, the parable of the Good Samaritan. In no way it was Jesus saying in that story that it's not our job to care for others and to show hospitality. And linked with the first reading today, where we see Abraham and Sarah showing such hospitality to these three strangers, clearly the role of hospitality is being lifted up and exalted as a necessary element for us, the church, and for our society. Yes, this gospel has often been celebrated for us as a way of balancing the contemplative and the active life, that all of us should have some balance of that in our lives. But another way of looking at the story, remember, Martha welcomed Jesus to the house. There was no man. There was no man. This woman is head of a household. We learn later that there is a brother named Lazarus. But in this story, it's Martha who is the host. It's Martha in the diaconal role. The word for her service is diakonoi in Greek. I'll come back to that. And Mary. What has Mary done? Mary has just pushed herself in with all the men, where she had no place at all doing that. She just kind of eased on in, elbowed a few of them away. That, no, this is also a woman's place. It's also a woman's place to be a disciple, to be one who is in awe of the teacher. This is not just for you guys. She made it very clear by her action, by her presence there. So Luke may be telling us something about some of the tension in the early church to which he was writing. In all likelihood, the emerging role of women in that community, in leadership roles, was something perhaps of a tension in the society, as it has continued to be throughout the history of the last 2,000 years. Luke is perhaps struggling by giving us this story. These two women, such leadership roles, models of different ways of being disciples of Jesus, but clearly making their place important. I find it encouraging this week that Pope Francis appointed 3 women to the dicastery that helps choose bishops of the world. Whoa. You think, well, 3 might just be a start. But I think 3 is a pretty good start. For different eyes, different hearts, looking at those who are being considered to be made bishops. This is sort of Martha and Mary, both being invited into the room and to bring their gifts to our church, to help the discernment of who should be a bishop. It's about time that that's being recognized. As I look at Scripture today, as almost always I do if I should if I don't, is to ask myself, so what now? So what is the call? What am I supposed to do? Or maybe I'm supposed to be? What's this gospel saying to us? And I was reflecting that one of the things that maybe I could take into this week is to make a very deliberate choice to somehow greet 3 strangers as Abram and Sarah did. Maybe deliberately make a point of trying to engage in conversation or some means of hospitality to people I don't know. That would be one response to the gospel today. Another response might be, follow Mary. If you are one of those people, like most of us are, who are often busy about many things, anxious about many things, maybe we could choose this week to learn from Mary's role of a little bit more quiet and contemplative in our lives. Or, in line with Martha, to go about our service of our brothers and sisters, service of our families, in a spirit of diakonoi. I am called to be of service to my family in preparation of a meal or in the other tasks of the household. It's not just a burden. This is my grace of service that I can offer to my family to do what I'm supposed to do in that kind of spirit. There is a great movement in the church today to have women deacons. And perhaps there's something you want to pray about, or perhaps you know a path to make that known. You support that. It's certainly going to be part of the synodal process coming up a year from now in October. But every Sunday we should be asking ourselves, what is the gospel calling me? Not just the gospel, but all of the scriptures we hear. What is the call for me? So I invite you to certainly ask that of yourselves today as the week goes on. We've heard this story from Luke. We've heard this story from Genesis. Great examples of hospitality. There is hospitality after Mass today. coffee and donuts. Hospitality is important. How we offer it, how we welcome. The other passage says that sometimes in welcoming a stranger, you have entertained angels. Whether that happens to us or not, it's still our role